You know, family is a weird thing. So I always try and find that balance whenever I record one of these things between talking about my own experiences in the world of art, but then also understanding within myself that I almost do a disservice to not talk about other things that happen. And I mean just in general, right? With people that are close to me. And you know, it's not, I think most of the reason why I even dredge into it sometimes is, yes, it's a little bit of a release, but nobody really out there, I imagine none of you really want to hear a bitch session all the time. And that isn't what this is, but I want to throw in something that, because it is kind of connected to a much better story that I'll tell here in just a moment. Right before I got done coming down here to get into the studio, get into the zone, you know, talk about things, whatever the case is, got a phone call out of the blue from my father, which, you know, it is what it is. And he was wanting some help. And one of the things that happened, in a nutshell, is that the old cat that they have, Princess, you guys have never seen her on any of these videos because she lives at my parents' home, but she is maybe 15, 16 years old, older cat. And they, you know, like, there's something strange about whenever you watch your parents get old, because for some people it's not bad. The challenge for me has been that there is something that has happened, and I don't know exactly how to explain it beyond this. There seems to be more and more of an absence of reasoning that transpires in the judgments that they'll make about certain things, whether it's something in the news, something dealing with modern society or technology, whatever. When it comes to animals or other family members, that's when I worry a bit more. In this circumstance, you know, I have some background because I've owned cats for a long time, and 2 or 3 of them, you know, consistently around the house, and then a bunch of them outside and things like that. And when I go to their house, there's a lot of times they're just always trying to get... The cat Princess is a very loud, talkative cat, and she's always been that way. They always thought she was weird, and I think maybe that little bit always intonates something inside of me that gets to me, because that was what they called me. Like, he's just weird, and they always wanted to quiet me down and just shut up, Princess, just go lay down. And it's always this disparaging thing, and it's like, I understand why my dad got the cat, and I'm going to explain that in this way. All of the cats they ever owned, my father is kind of an interesting fellow. My mom's in the similar boat. They don't want to harm an animal, but they also will get them, and then they don't really pay attention to them. They were raised at a time, and this is just what they went through, where animals were like children. They were seen but not heard, understood to be there but not necessarily interacted with. And the older they get, the more they are with people too, like that. Myself, my siblings, things like that. So it's kind of sad to see that happen with the animals. And so this is a circumstance where she seems to be getting sick, or they were like, well, she's acting like, you know, weird and everything. And there's nothing more infuriating than trying to have a conversation like this. And my dad wears hearing aids. He's got them turned up all the way, but he's done so much damage to his hearing from years of listening to the television loud, refusing to get it. You ever have those conversations with somebody and you're yelling in the phone, and when you're done with that phone call or in person, you literally have an anxiety ball sitting right here. You're like, because it makes you feel like you were in an argument or something. It's fucking crazy. So basically they're worried about her, and I was trying to, you know, explain and all these other things, and then like I found out they no longer had cat carriers, because why would they need cat carriers? It was just in the way. So now I'm having to bring down something that they can take the cat to the vet. But they're also like my, you know, I'm going to stop right there, because I know I can get carried away with this, and I'm not going to spend any more time on that. just know that if you guys out there are dealing with parental issues like that, watching your parents get older in their 80s, their 70s, their 90s, you're not alone. I think you already know that. But it's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to feel alienated or alone or things. And I only say that because you're not. You know, so if that's something you're going through, and we all at some point have or will, feel free to reach out. I'll listen. I really mean that sincerely. It can be a fucking problem. And there's a lot of people that put that in denial, and they'll maybe stick their parents in an old folks home or do whatever. There's no judgment there, right? Whatever you do is whatever you do. That's you. But that's not the case with my parents. They live in their own home, but it's hard seeing things happen. And so it affects me, right? And the reason I'm talking about that is I'm going to go ahead and switch to this other aspect, which is a much happier story. I was in Denver for a little bit. I went to go help at an art show. And at this art show, you set up in a park. So all the artists, everybody that was helping, working at this show, you're cooking out there on this asphalt practically. There's very little shade. A few artists had it, but it was hot. Attendance was kind of low. I was surprised people were walking their dogs. The temperature on the asphalt when it was hitting 100 had to have been 130 degrees on that black asphalt. So I was feeling pretty dour. It was so hot, I couldn't really work with my iPad or anything else. My phone was overheating. It was just bad. There's very little wind. And thank goodness, though, you know, everyone has a proliferation of these Ryobi fans, which this is my small mini one that goes with me to every single convention and show I do. I don't care what time of year it is. I have to have moving air around me. It's a calming factor. But, you know, if you ever go to art shows, you'll notice these gray and green fans everywhere. And that's because people have been putting them in there to get airflow in the tents and stuff. Well, I was basically sitting and minding my own business, and this one fellow, he picked me out and wanted to just talk to me, and he gave me his business card, which I have now lost. But that's okay. Sometimes the wonders of the modern world can be really cool in this respect, because I did take a picture of it, but I'm filming on my phone, so I can't even show you guys that, or maybe I can do an overlay, I don't know. That's not the point. His name was Martin Frumkin, and he came up, and he was an older gentleman, probably in his late 70s. And as we got to talking, one thing led to another, and the conversation was quick, you know, but it was one of those ones where you feel like, okay, there's some sort of connective tissue here. There's some commonalities, right? And he gave me the information that he had a book that he was trying to get out there. Well, most of the time that does not work with me. I'm just going to be honest. When authors come up and they tell me about a book, I don't always want to hear about it. Any more than they would want to hear about my comic book or graphic novels or anything I've done. I can completely understand that. I really can. And it's not to be, you know, dissuasive. It's not supposed to be anything more than the fact that, like, dude, I'm trying to sell my own shit at times, okay? Or it's hotter than Satan out here. And I should have said hell, right? I don't actually know how hot Satan is. I don't know that. With this book, he said, I got this book, you know, I don't know if you know anything about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and, like, you know, mental health and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I'm intrigued by everything you're stating here, sir. So, yeah, I think I want to look into this. I want to see what's going on with this, okay? So we get to talking, everything happens, you know, where we're just, you know, more people coming around and things like that. He was like, you know, just no pressure, just check it out if you'd like. I think you'd really enjoy it and everything else. At least check out my website. Something to that note. I forget the exact things that he told me. And most of it was probably the heat overcoming me. So he goes on, and I thought, I'm going to check this out. So I went on Amazon. Sure enough, it was for sale for $9. I was like, well, I can't possibly pass that up. Real talk here. Used my last $10 to buy the book because I'm waiting on payments from freelance work and other stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I can dodge a bullet here or there. Bills are due a little bit later. I'm fine. It'll be okay. So I went ahead and got it, and it was waiting for me when I got home. It is called Suspected Hippie in Transit by Martin Frumkin. It's got a little bio. That's what he looks like right there. This is the gentleman I spoke to. And I have just now started jumping into it. I'm just going to read basically a little bit of the back on here. What was it like to backpack along the International Hippie Trail 50 years ago? Martin Frumkin's pre-tech countercultural rucksack romp throughout Asia captures the tumultuous, don't give a damn attitude of such rebellious nomadic vagabonds as Marco Polo, Ibn Battuta, and Neil Cassidy. Martin tuned in and turned on, but chose not to drop out. And basically, it's filled with pictures and everything. It is about, how many pages was this? I think it's right around 300 and, yeah, it's about 300 pages odd for the main story, and then it starts to go into acknowledgments and things. A few pages on that. I have yet to really jump into this fully. I started reading some bits of it, and it is very Anthony Bourdain in a lot of ways. And the thing was, in a lot of the things I've been doing lately, I've been concerned with the idea that I am in the third act of my life. There are 3 acts, right? There is youth, the vigor of youth, the experimentation, the wide open, aspect of ideology, unburdened. Responsibility is maybe on the horizon. And then the second act is more where you're settling in, you're figuring out the road that you're going to walk or drive for a while, and occasionally there'll be exits and things, and people will come in and out of your life, but for the most part, you've stabilized. The third act, and I am just now at the beginning of that third act, is where you begin to look at finality of things. You start to look at, well, the majority of my life is behind me. Where am I heading now? Unless I live to be 100, which is doubtful. Although it would be wonderful. I really do think that. I don't know what the rest of my life holds. I mean, there are certain quantifiable things that I can stick with, and certain things that I really do enjoy, and things that people that I love being around, and things like that. But things change, and they have. In fact, finding out that a cat that was a part of my life may very well be very sick or have something worse come along is part of what I'm talking about here. Nonetheless, after I got done talking to Martin, I sat there for a while and I thought, I'm going to get up and I'm going to walk around. I know it's fucking hot out here, but I carry these, and I'm going to have to do a review on a lot of my show equipment soon. I have these bottles. You can buy them at Walmart, believe it or not. They're like $20 or so, 20, 25 bucks, I think. They may have gone up in price now, but they're fantastic. They're double wall steel. Like, if you fill that thing with ice cubes, pour water in it, you will have ice water for 48 hours, even on the hottest. My bottle is black, and it insulates so damn well. And it's crazy. Because the ice isn't going anywhere, right? And you can pour like room temperature water into it, and yes, that'll melt it some, but it stays. So I strapped that across me, picked up my phone, and walked across this big field that was in front of me. And I'll drop pictures over the thing. I'll do some overlays so that way y'all can see what I'm talking about. As I walk up this way, I realize 2 things. I get short of breath really quickly. So I don't know if that's long COVID, diabetes, age, fatigue, gravity. I don't fucking know, but it's there. I get all the way up there. And it's a series of columns, okay? And there's an old fountain that is no longer being used. A bunch of signs around there says no skateboarding, and they've clearly been, they were in once better shape, and they've been marked over and kicked down and broken apart. Well, I went through the columns. I remember seeing a small group that was recording a music video of some sort, and then a woman that was performing with some sort of spinning bladed thing, and then what I think was a homeless gentleman and his dog. And then over to the side is where I decided to sit down, because I noticed there was a bunch of people kind of, sitting amongst the trees in a nice, cool area. But there was also the familiar sound of skateboards. So I went over and I sat down, and sure enough, there's some people riding on skateboards. Now, the really crazy part about this was that the moment I sat down, it immediately felt like when I was in college or right after high school. The group numbered about 50 people, just a cursory glance. And I remember sitting down there against that column in the shade. There's a few people around me, but the majority were about 20, 30 feet away from me. Nobody said anything to me, and I didn't really interact. I wish I had, and I'll get to that here in just a moment as well. Because I'm watching them, and I could tell it was, something of a private little event. There was food. They were picnicking. There were some people skateboarding, and then it looked like a table was set up, and somebody was selling things there. Okay. Well, I'm just watching and appreciating the exact thing I spoke about earlier. People that are in their first act, their lives. Life is a play. Sir Ian McKellen said that in a recent thing that he did. And that is a quote, I believe, by Shakespeare. And the thing is that as I watched this play out in front of me, I marveled at the fact that now fashion amongst youth is a pageantry of things from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. And it wove this beautiful cacophony of textures and fabric and color. And it was timeless in its sense. It was sort of weird. Enjoyably so, though. As I sat there, I remember thinking I should probably get up, keep on moving, head back to the art fair. And right about that time, one individual, that was something I was going to say. As I was sitting there, I realized this was a group that was comprised primarily of people who were trans. And I believe that there were some that may not have been, but in general, and I was not wrong on my thought process on that, because one jumped up onto a bench, and this individual decided to go ahead and speak. I mean, I think it was their event. And I could be wrong on this. I was leaning in to hear basically what was being said. I think this little gathering had happened once prior, and they'd only had about 10 people show up. Well, now they had about this 40 to 50 people, and they brought that up. They were like, now look at what we're doing. Look at how this is growing. Hopefully there'll be more people. We're going to keep doing something like this. And from their phone, they read and spoke about this itinerary of things that were happening. One of the things I was very proud of, which I was proud, but I was also sad over. Growing up, if you wanted to learn how to skateboard, it was always, and I am a cis male, there was always this idea that you could go anywhere and learn how to skate, and for the most part, people helped you out. I've always thought skaters were some of the kindest people in the world, but maybe that's changing in some areas, because one of the things they talked about was establishing places to learn how to skate in a safe, judgment-free zone. Then they started speaking about other things that really started to take the apathy and hurt and anger that I had in my heart over a lot of things I've been going through and whisked it away. They spoke about the challenges they were facing. They spoke about relying on each other. They spoke about all of these things, including musical performances, art shows, other things. And I was hearing these things, and I remember being lost in my thought. So a lot of it fell by the wayside. I know more was said. I did remember that the person speaking said that their band Dry Ice was going to be having a show, and there was some band, I believe, from Los Angeles that was going to be coming out, and they were going to be opening for them. I think at the Granada in Lawrence. So that enmeshed in my head, and I decided I'm going to keep that, and I'm going to look into that. And I've added that band to my band camp. The first song they did that I heard on there was phenomenal. They have a lot of really good songs. But I remember thinking to myself, this is wild that I would have just met a gentleman, that Martin Frumkin fellow with his book, who was a free spirit, but his days of youth were 40, 50 years ago. And then seeing this group of individuals together expressing similar ideologies, but of course from a modern paradigm. And then here I am, somewhere in the middle. Probably leaning more toward third act again, but somewhere in the middle nonetheless. And it was a watershed moment for me. Something I've struggled with has been that as I've been going through coaching and therapy and other things in my life, I've often wondered to myself, where do I fit? What am I doing? Am I supposed to keep drawing? Are the books I'm making worthwhile? Is there something else I need to do? And because even the rescue I work for, Midwest Animal Rescue, unfortunately, so many people are turning in their dogs. Dogs, cats get dropped off all the time. You start to wonder, when will it end? There seems to be, for the most part, a willful ignorance that exists, a defiance of community, and one more of self-love and resolve that is of the most negative substance. A selfishness. A lack of openness, unless it gets you likes or comments. Thankfully, with my therapist, the people in my family and friends, and even in seeing and meeting people out there that go against that grain and show what it's like to work together or to live life on their own terms without harming anyone else, something welled up in me. And I remember in my coaching class, I described it as, when your cat is about to have a hairball, it's that violent action, and then they shake their head and they wander off like, I made this. That's how it felt. I thought I was going to throw up. It was this welling of sorrow and grief and missed opportunities and pathetic feeling and joy and all these things that just intermixed together. And they emerged as tears. I don't know if they were happy tears, tears of frustration. They were tears. And I remember as I walked back down the hill, somebody asked me, hey bro, you okay? I was like, yeah, they were just allergies. Allergies. And now that I'm back home, none of that energy has left me. Never mind, I've got this wonderful book to read and some cool songs to listen to from the band. It made me rethink how I'm approaching life. As I started talking about this, I was having an anxiety attack from dealing with, a father who doesn't really hear, literally, figuratively and physically cannot hear me very well. And it's weird that for the better part of my life, an individual who often would tell me what I needed to do in life is now asking me what they can do. It's very strange. Anyway, I've got shows coming up, and I'm planning on doing a lot of video work for that. Very excited. And I'll certainly have more stuff on there. I apologize that my journals have not been as frequent as I would have liked them to have been, but sometimes I have to step back and think, and that's okay. I would much rather make better entries than rush them all the time, not really have the process to think through and stuff like that. Until next time, guys, I am Mario the Artisan Rogue, and you can catch me on a lot of different videos. There's a whole bunch of new uploads this week, and I'll have more. I'm just going to take a break for a little bit to get ready for some shows, so videos may drop a little bit, but otherwise, I've got a bunch of them you can watch, and I will catch you guys in my next journal, which will be resuming its weekly Monday releases. Take care.